Really listen up to what I'm about to say, because this right here shows exactly how diplomacy goes down when an authoritarian government starts feeling the heat from just plain truth. Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takashi, she made a totally straightforward statement right in the middle of a parliament session early November. She said, hypothetically, if there's a military conflict between China and Taiwan, and if things get really serious, that could actually threaten Japan's survival. And that was it. It was a scenario breakdown, really just answering a straightforward technical question about national defense. That's all. So what did Beijing do about it? Not so subtle threats about beheading, a ban on Japanese seafood, flights getting cancelled, warnings telling students to stay away from Japan, and then an outraged letter sent to the Secretary General of the United Nations. It sounds way over the top, and yeah, it really is. Let's break down the geography first because it's crucial for understanding why Takashi's statement is actually pretty reasonable, not ridiculous at all. So, Taiwan sits about 100 miles off China's coast, but Japan's farthest west territory is only 78 miles from Taiwan. That's like half the drive from San Diego up to Los Angeles. Bottom line, any fighting in that area hits Japan's security head-on. Not because of politics, but simply because of where everything is. On top of that, Japan's got 50,000 American troops and a bunch of key military bases. The idea that Japan could just turn a blind eye to a war happening right at its doorstep, that's a total fantasy, one even the Chinese government doesn't honestly buy into. Takashi's words are backed by defense laws passed back in 2015 when Shinzo Abe was in charge. That law brought in the idea of a survival-threatening situation, meaning Japan can take military action even if they're not directly attacked, as long as it's a real threat to their existence. It's totally defensive, not offensive, and it's 100% legit under international law. And Japan's foreign minister made it super clear, nothing wrong with those statements, no reason to take any of it back. But for Beijing, apparently things like legal sovereignty and actually following their own constitution only count when it fits what the Chinese Communist Party wants. Beijing's first reaction came from a diplomat, Xu Zhen, who's China's consul general out in Osaka. He put out a post on X saying, "Any dirty head poking around where it shouldn't needs to be chopped off right away. No questions asked." In another post, he called Japan's opposition a death road picked by dumb politicians. The post was taken down afterward, but only after the American ambassador to Japan, George Claas, had already snapped it up and spread it around. And what was Beijing's official response to all that? They said, oh, those were just personal remarks made off the record, not in any official role. So, a top Chinese diplomat, someone who speaks for the government, basically threatens another country's leader, and their excuse is, oh, it's just my personal opinion. That kind of cynicism, only an authoritarian regime can say that with a straight face. The Japanese government pushed back hard. They called in the Chinese ambassador, asked for answers and an apology, and folks in the Liberal Democratic Party even passed a resolution to kick Xu Zhen out, declared him persona non grata. The resolution said those comments insulted the whole Japanese nation and did some real damage to relations between the two countries. Meanwhile, China's state media, like CCTV, just upped the ante. They said Takeshi went too far, and one affiliated account even warned she might have to pay the price if she kept going. Those are thinly veiled threats, still threats, no doubt about it. And since they're coming straight from Chinese state media, you really can't trust them. Things kept heating up step by step. The Chinese embassy in Japan compared what Takeshi said to the Japanese invasion of Manchuria in World War II. They were using old guilt as a political tool. It's a classic tactic, and honestly, it's pretty intellectually dishonest, to be real. It's one thing to admit mistakes from the past, but it's something else entirely to use history to shut down any real current national defense argument. That's like wanting to punish modern Germany for what Hitler did decades ago. On top of that, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said Japan was trying to mess with the post-war order, all while pushing the line that Taiwan belongs to China, just ignoring the fact that the island's never been run by the Communist Party. Not ever. The economic pressure came right after. Beijing cancelled flights between the two countries, saying there weren't enough passengers. They also sent out notices telling all Chinese citizens not to go to Japan and advised students to be extra careful if they're planning to study there, mentioning concerns about social instability. Japanese universities were quick to deny all of those accusations. After that, they put a ban on Japanese seafood, a move they've used before, kind of like a way to hit back. The Chinese spokesperson tried to make it sound like it was just a bureaucratic thing, but he also admitted that even if they let Japanese imports in, folks wouldn't buy them because of what Takashi said. This is trade being used on purpose as a way to force political change, just flat out using commerce to try and correct politics. The US responded fast and didn't mince words, straight to the point, totally clear. Ambassador George Class said the seafood ban wasn't fair, and he made it clear Washington would stand with Tokyo, just like it did the last time Japan's seafood was banned. The State Department also put out a statement saying the Japan-US partnership is key to keeping peace and security in the Indo-Pacific. The US strongly stands against any one-sided move to change things by force or threats, whether in the Taiwan Strait, East China Sea, or South China Sea. That statement matters because it puts America clearly on the side of keeping the region stable and calls out Beijing's expansionist ambitions. The most impressive part of all this, it's Sanai Takashi's guts. Even as things got tougher, she didn't back off. When she was asked if she'd walk back her statements in light of what the Chinese regime did, she was crystal clear. The government's position has been steady all along. She mentioned she's given that answer plenty of times already. And when the opposition in Japan's parliament criticized her for supposedly souring relations with China, she answered that talks would stay open and constructive. That's the kind of leadership that knows backing down to threats just brings even more threats. You can't negotiate with terrorism, especially not the kind of geopolitical terrorism China's gotten used to pulling off. There was also a move to put out a different version of events to try and shape a new narrative. The Wall Street Journal ran a report based on some anonymous sources claiming President Trump told Takashi not to stir things up with Beijing about Taiwan. But Japan's government spokesperson shot that down flat out, saying none of it ever happened. No way. Trump even picked up the phone and called Takashi right after chatting with Xi Jinping, and the Prime Minister mentioned that the call just reinforced how solid American support is for Japan. She said Trump told her they're super close friends and she could reach out to him whenever she wanted. So this whole diplomatic mess says a lot about the way China's Communist Party handles things worldwide. Anything said that goes against their storyline, they call it an attack. Any country that dares to defend its own legitimate interests gets accused of violating the so-called international order. And if diplomacy doesn't cut it, then here come the trade punishments, the sneaky threats, and the whole media spin to stir up their own people. They've pulled the same playbook on Australia, South Korea, Lithuania, and now Japan. The real kicker is Beijing goes after Japan for supposedly breaking international law, while it's the Chinese regime itself that brushes off rulings from global courts, builds up man-made islands, and keeps violating airspace and maritime zones all the time. They even mess with their neighbors and keep up this really aggressive stance in the Indo-Pacific region. For instance, China's Coast Guard sent out 4 ships to cruise near the Senkaku Islands, which Japan controls, right smack in the middle of this whole crisis. If anybody else pulled this kind of stunt, it'd be front page news all over the world. Backing the US and Japan isn't just about military ties, it's about standing up for our values. Democracies shouldn't get pushed around by dictatorships, plain and simple. Free countries have every right to talk about defense plans, to defend their own borders, and to voice real legitimate concerns about threats in their region. What Takashi did was to exercise his country's sovereignty, showing real leadership and taking action for his nation. And Beijing's totally over-the-top reaction just proves right there exactly why it's so important to defend that sovereignty. If just bringing up the idea of defending your own nation sparks this kind of outrage, just picture what would happen if the whole world stayed totally silent and just went along with whatever the Chinese Communist Party demanded, never questioning a single thing.